welcome presenters. I've never been in a panel of so many presenters before, so I'm feeling a little bit outnumbered. So I'm going to start by saying we're going to have a quick look at your standing orders first of all. So I don't know your standing orders, so I am going to read them. So for each of the main governance reform resolutions, campaigns will be invited to make a 3-minute opening statement, after which they will answer further questions on the topic sourced from OU students, for which there will be a strict 2-minute time limit to provide answers. 2 delegates from each campaign may participate in each segment of the debate. I'm sure you know all this already, but perhaps other people don't. We're going to alternate which campaign answers first for each resolution, as there is a debate as to which party gets the advantage, so we will alternate them. As more questions were received on some of the resolutions than others, some segments will be longer than others, but there is a minimum of 2 questions per segment and a maximum of 4. Each campaign can bring a maximum of 8 representatives and a minimum of 2. 2 delegates from each campaign can debate each resolution. If you are not debating the current resolution, please turn off your camera and mute your microphone. Please do not interrupt the debate. We have received our questions from student submissions, and we will not be taking additional questions or cross-examination from either campaign. And again, I'm sure I don't need to do this, but I am going to just remind you of the behaviour that we expect during the debate. And I think we'll sum that up by just reminding you of your OU values, which are comprehensive, I must admit, but they include kindness and compassion, openness, collaboration, equality, inclusivity and integrity, and just generally the kind of behaviour that we would expect from people like your good selves. So moving on, it again would be helpful just to make sure, I mean, I can't hear any background noise at all, but just remind you, if you get excited during the debate, you might forget, and we will in fact probably have you muted. Please don't take offence if you are muted, unless it is in the middle of your speech. Without more ado, let's start with the Resolution A, which is replacing the biennial OU Students Association Conference with an online AGM. You have 3 minutes to explain why conference delegates should vote for or against this resolution. 3 minutes each for campaign to answer first.
Thank you. In this, our 50th year, let's not live in the past. Yes, let's celebrate the past, but let's live for the future. We all know that any change can be uncomfortable for some that are used to and comfortable with the historic system. However, this is a great opportunity for the majority in this case. Why?
Previously, about 500 students out of over 170,000 could benefit from the biannual conference and enjoy meeting other students on campus. A very small proportion of 170,000 is 0.3%. The biannual conference cost $200,000 for those 500 delegates, a sum that could host many national and regional events where students can meet others from their area, building up a local community, all financed by the travel and accommodation savings from cancelling the biannual conference. Localised events will not only allow greater participation in attendance and organising, they will be easier and cheaper to hold and to tailor to what students in the area want, not decided centrally. We are an organisation run by our student members for our student members, so we have seen important changes to make us more democratic, such as the introduction of 1 member, 1 vote in 2016. This current resolution is a further step along the line of increasing participation and democratic empowerment for our members. Moving away from one large, expensive biannual conference to smaller, more frequent local events will involve more students and enable the time poor and those with other commitments or restraints to actively engage with us. This is our chance to make the Students' Association more open and democratic, empowering our members by giving them a louder voice on how their organisation is run. I would urge you to consider all these points, then vote for this resolution to be part of the modernisation of the association.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else speaking for
Not in this resolution.
Lovely. Okay. Against.
I want to use the first of my 3 minutes to say that we're grateful for the opportunity to explain why we believe conference delegates should vote against the resolutions, and to thank Jackie for agreeing to act as our host and moderator. And I sincerely hope she won't need to use any of her famous powers of keeping order this evening, because I hope everyone here would acknowledge that whichever side we take in the debate, we all want to achieve the best possible outcome for students. And disagreement does not imply disrespect. In the course of the next hour, our team will be urging delegates to vote against all 4 resolutions. This is not because we're opposed to change. On the contrary, we want to see change. We want the association to be more democratic, more open, more transparent, and more accessible to students. We also want it to be more relevant to students and to deliver services that will enhance and enrich their student experience. But sadly, we don't believe the changes proposed in the resolution will deliver those improvements. In fact, we believe they'll be counterproductive. So, why are we recommending students vote against Resolution A? We're very much in favour of opening the association's affairs to wider scrutiny by the members, but we don't believe that replacing the biennial face-to-face conference with an online AGM is the best or only way to achieve this. The biennial conference, usually held in Milton Keynes, already has an inbuilt online element that could be expanded to allow all students to scrutinise and vote on association business without losing the unique opportunities for enthusiastic engagement that a face-to-face event provides. The danger of an online AGM is that even fewer students would engage with association business than do now. Anyone who has an account with a building society or who's a member of a charitable organisation like the National Trust will know how poor attendance usually is at an online AGM and how difficult it is for ordinary members to influence the way the organisation is run. We're also concerned that other changes wrapped up in this proposal, including the quality changes and the reduction of the 75% majority needed to change the articles, weaken safeguards that are designed to prevent changes that do not benefit the membership. The changes proposed in Resolution A do not benefit students, and we urge conference delegates to vote against them.
Perfect timing, Barbara. Question 2. How does an online-only AGM impact the ability for OU students to have their voices heard within the association? 2 minutes each. Against campaign to answer first.
Thank you, Jackie. As Barbara said earlier, the danger is that fewer students will attend an online AGM than the numbers that currently attend conference business, whether that was online or face-to-face. At least with conference attached to the business element, we have an added incentive to get students involved with activities offered beyond the business element. It will also be harder to show students how they can contribute to the work of the association, and that we recognise how important their contributions are. With a business-only agenda that reads much like a shareholders meeting rather than the lively debate we get at conference, opportunities to shape things going forward will find only a small number of interested students will care to engage, which actually makes the pool of influential student voices grow weaker and not stronger. The new format will struggle to introduce much needed new voices who may not feel they have the knowledge necessary to engage in business-only basis. Whereas we know that conference has always brought about a range of motives for attending that we could then channel into active engagement once they were more aware of what's on offer. It will be harder for students to influence the association's policy and strategy than it is now. While we're offering voting opportunities to decisions that are made without conference debate opportunity, it feels very disconnected from actively helping to shape that policy and strategy. These discussions and opportunities kept a lot of people talking long into the night in the bars and hotels at conference, and losing that means a loss of active engagement filtering through at all levels. We really, really need to make sure that the ability to influence happens at all levels. That's both at the university and at the association. And any opportunities to involve students should be embraced and not parked over to one side so that we can just have people in just for the voting element. I think it's really important that students get the opportunity to be heard, and the way this is all shaping up, it looks like there's less of that rather than the more that we're asking for. So thank you.
Thank you, Cinnamon.
The For campaign, yes.
Yep.
Yes, we incorporated in 2018, and as a charitable company, we're required to hold an annual general meeting to pass company business, approve the accounts, the reports, reappoint the auditors, etc. By holding the AGM online, it means that all students who wish to participate and vote can register and take part, rather than just the select few, the 500 we mentioned earlier. It does not mean that we cancel the recreational or educational activities which went alongside the business at the biannual conference. It just means that we have a larger representative attendance, and we have to move to using technology in a way that we've all had to become familiar with over the last 2 years.
Getting a quorum and passing resolutions is easier and gives a more frequent opportunity for community building and checking on how the leadership is doing. We have had issues in the past with small, selected 500 delegates where, probably for good reasons, delegates have not turned up, which takes that number down considerably. So we not only incur the cost of non-refundable accommodation, but are in danger of not getting a quorum. No quorum means no authority to change, and the opportunities are wasted. Of course, the savings from an online-only AGM will be available to hold events on campus and around the nations, which will, in practice, help us to build the community and get the engagement going, which we all want to see happen.
Thank you, Stephanie and Matt. Okay, and the final one on this resolution: the chance for students to attend the Open University campus in Milton Keynes and meet fellow students is a great opportunity provided by the Students' Association. How will the proposed changes impact the future engagement with OU students? For campaign to go first. Thank you, Matt.
So, yes, the proposed changes will result in an increased opportunity for students to engage with the association compared with the previous Milton Keynes campus-based biannual conference. Our membership has grown, and it will continue to grow in the future as the OU itself continues to expand, meaning that the 500 invitations to the biannual conference is an increasingly smaller portion of our membership. It's less than 0.3%, as we heard, of our student membership. Getting a place was not just like winning the lottery, it was winning the lottery. The draw for most places was a random lottery. Of course, there were guaranteed places reserved for the leadership and selected guests who didn't have to enter this lottery to be a winner. For that minority, it's quite understandable that this proposed change is perceived in a negative manner.
We will be able to use the savings of £200,000 for activities which benefit more of the membership. Meeting fellow students and building the student community is one area that should not be neglected, and we would have an opportunity to hold regional gatherings both in person and online, which will allow more students to take part, as well as promoting the ability to meet fellow students from your area or nation.
Thank you both. And the against campaign?
Hi, this is question 3, right? Not question 2?
This is question 3.
Right, okay. Thank you. The biannual conference is a great way for the association to showcase the work that it does for our students and to increase their interest and engagement. Many of us started our involvement through attending a conference. It offers opportunities for students to meet with each other in real life and to make new friends, which leads to greater satisfaction in studying. It establishes personal contact with other students within your region or within your faculty so that you can make networks of support. It gives a prolonged, eager passionate debate opportunities about everything at all under the sun, and people get more engaged and involved because of this. It gives you the opportunity to talk to student reps and find out how academic representation works at the association, and to sign up. You get the opportunity to meet association staff and to see campus and to see what the offices are like, and to just feel a part of the community of which we're all a member. It gives you the opportunity to take part in a variety of academic workshops and social events, which give us, some of us, the very first opportunity to feel like a real student. I've spent a lot of time this term actively encouraging the Open University to continue to offer face-to-face opportunities for students within academic representation. It'd be remiss of the association to consider removing the best face-to-face opportunities that we offer. And with the removal of conference business to an online AGM, I fear that the opportunities to engage with other students on this scale will be lost with this decision. The chances of seeing a conference meetup like this that goes, all of us from across the country can come to that one spot without the need to oversee business will be minimal. You know, there's no way that local meetups can replicate that feeling of being on campus, that feeling of being in amongst hundreds of other students, and no way that we'll be able to afford to host meetups on this scale ever again without a proper reason to be able to do so. Business at Conference allowed us to have that reason, and the OU gave us funding to do so. We need conference.
Thank you, Cinnamon. On to Resolution B. Implement the recommended changes to the composition and appointment of the Board of Trustees. So you have 3 minutes to explain why conference delegates should vote for or against this resolution. Again, that's 3 minutes each, and the against campaign is invited to go first.
Thank you, Jackie. We believe that delegates should vote against this resolution because the proposed changes significantly reduce the elected student membership of the Board of Trustees. At present, there are 9 elected student trustees and 3 appointed lay members, one of whom is the chair. 3 student trustees are elected members of the CEC, but 6 are directly elected by students to make decisions about the affairs of the association on behalf of the wider student body. The resolution proposes to replace those 6 directly elected student members with 4 appointed student members. If adopted, the resolution will substantially reduce the ability of students to oversee the strategy and the operation of their own association. I think we all agree that changes are needed to make the association more open and accountable to its members. But the changes proposed in Resolution B won't achieve the greater transparency and accountability that the association needs. When we get to Resolution D, we'll see that it proposes a mechanism to scrutinise the student leadership team and to hold them to account. However, as the conference documents clearly show, all the key decisions about the strategic direction of the association and the way that it operates are taken by the Board of Trustees and not by the CEC. And a really good example of this is on page 4 of the resolutions book, which states that the resolutions were drafted by a working group and adopted in full by the trustees with only, and I quote, minor additions based on the feedback of the Central Executive Committee. The ultimate authority over the affairs of the association lies in the hands of the trustees. However, none of the resolutions propose mechanisms to scrutinise the way they work or to hold them to account. And this is very different from the Open University, where all council members, including the chair, undergo biannual appraisals, and the council conducts and publishes an annual review of its own performance against agreed parameters. By removing elected student members from the Board of Trustees, the Resolution B will significantly reduce students' membership rights and remove essential democratic safeguards. We therefore urge delegates to vote against this resolution.
So, what is a trustee? Think of the association as a student body.
The trustees are the head of the organisation, looking after operational policy, risk management and taking legal and financial responsibility. The CEC or student leadership team are the face of the organisation, representing and supporting students, developing policy statements and campaigns. Both of these groups are supported by a staff team, which are the hands, and the volunteers, which are the heart of the organisation. The Students' Association is a charity and must therefore comply with all relevant laws and legislations governing how a charity operates. The trustees are granted powers and responsibilities in accordance with UK laws and the Articles of Association, which is the governance document setting out our principles. It is of paramount importance that the Board of Trustees has the right skills, experience and necessary commitment to discharge their responsibilities. Increasing the number of appointed lay and student trustees ensures the right skills, knowledge and commitment and diversity are represented on the board. The decisions taken here are fundamental to the correct legal and procedural running of the organisation.
The current process of electing student trustees can mean that those elected may be out of their depth or realise that the role doesn't suit their expectations. This can lead to an unsustainably high turnover, which has a consequentially detrimental impact on the good governance of the association. It is better to have trustees who are appointed because of their skills, experience and knowledge, rather than because of winning an election, something which may be classed as something of a popularity contest.
Having directly appointed student trustees ensures that the right people can be deployed into the right roles. Targeted recruitment means that any gaps in the knowledge, skill set, experience or diversity of the Board of Trustees can therefore be filled.
Thank you, Sarah and Kate. So what's the impact of removing directly elected student trustees? For campaign to go first.
Okay, so the current process of electing student trustees can mean that those elected may well be out of their depth and realise that the role doesn't suit their expectations. This can lead to an unsustainably high turnover, which has already happened, and that has a knock-on impact on having to train new student trustees and a consequential detrimental impact on the good governance of the association. It is better, therefore, to have trustees who are appointed because of their skills, experience and knowledge, rather than because of winning an election.
Having directly appointed student trustees, as previously mentioned, would ensure that the right people can be put into the right roles. With targeted recruitment, any gaps in the knowledge, skill set or experience of the whole Board of Trustees can be filled.
To effectively manage the administration of the association and govern effectively, the Board of Trustees should be seen to reflect the diversity of the student population. By appointing student and lay trustees, it is easier to enhance the diversity of the board rather than rely on the lottery that is an election.
Okay, thank you both. So it's the opportunity for the Against campaign.
Thank you. As we heard, the Board of Trustees' powers are considerable and very far-reaching. If the Students' Association is to be an organisation run by students for students, then it is important that the Board of Trustees is accountable to students and elected by them. In this current proposal, 8 out of 12 trustees will be appointed. By changing the number of elected student trustees from 9 to 4, then this proposal reduces that accountability of the board to students. In this association, we trust the electorate to elect the leadership team. We should therefore trust the electorate to elect the Board of Trustees. The answer to all the concerns about whether elected trustees have the capabilities and skills is not to remove the vote, but to make it clear to the electorate the importance and the role, and to fully support those elected students. With this proposal, the 4 elected student trustees will also form a majority on the student leadership team. This further reduces the transparency and gives a potential for a conflict of interest. And in circumstances that may arise, it would be possible for a quorum to pass policy without any input from the elected trustees. Please vote against this proposal. It reduces student democracy.
Thank you, Sandra. Perfect timing. So I think we're ready to move on to Resolution C. Yeah, okay. Which is proposes to replace the Central Executive Committee with a new student leadership and representation structure featuring a student leadership team and student forum. Question 1. You have 3 minutes to explain why conference delegates should vote for or against this resolution. 3 minutes each. For campaign to go first.
The current system of student leadership has not changed much over the last 50 years, and this is the first full review of its structure. Our vision is to create a smaller, manageable elected student leadership team accountable to the student body who elected them. They will be supported by a wider student forum who work flexibly around their other commitments, providing insight into the student experience and support the student leadership team to complete their remits. This new structure recognises the different roles needed for leadership and the discussion, debate of strategy, policy and procedure matters that the leadership team is then charged with. The student forum would consist of 30 to 40 elected and appointed students. Their skills, experience and diverse background would support the work of the student leadership team, making us a more agile and representative student association. This increases democracy and better representation for the membership, offering a way for students to be involved with association work and possibly become student leaders in the future.
Currently, there were low terms limits on elected roles, or how many terms do you do on our student leadership. This can put new students off from standing for a role. In a brick university, you would have 2 one-year terms as a student leader, bearing in mind that we are not a brick university and the students can stay around for decades. We need a system that ensures we are the diverse and representative structure. Having a 2 terms limit in a role and 3 terms limit as an elected representative would be a fairer system to ensure continuity while allowing the student leadership team to be refreshed, progressive and diverse. We can understand that change is often difficult to accept, but it helps us to reflect, take stock, improve and move forward.
Thank you. Have we finished with the for campaign?
Yes.
Yep, lovely. Thank you, ladies. And the against, please.
Thank you. Students should vote against this proposal as it will reduce democratic accountability and it will introduce further complexity. This type of leadership is quite common in red brick universities, but not suitable for the open university with its dispersed student body. As has been said, red bricks have 2-term time limits. These are because they are sabbatical officers and that is the law of the land. These sabbatical officers have no other duties, no other commitments or anything else during their term of office. OU volunteers will be part-time or full-time students already and may also have jobs and family responsibilities. For these volunteers, this workload is already far too high. Reducing the number of the leadership team will make it worse. And this has been shown in the present term by the requirements to co-opt to the present exec because of resignations and vacancies, probably because of workload problems. In addition, this proposal will remove the right of students to elect their student member of council This is one of the highest positions for a student in the university, and students deserve the right to elect that member, not to have appointed members. Now, there have been concerns expressed about diversity and inclusion. If we look at the current executive, it is already diverse, and it's certainly representative, as it is elected, as it should be, by the whole of the student body. We have, in addition, a diverse, knowledgeable groups of students in our Senate reference groups and Central Committee representatives. These volunteers are from all parts of the university, and they would be perfectly willing to work on working groups that the Student Forum is suggested to do. The CSE have responsibility for policy. If they have focused on internal policies, then that has been a choice rather than focusing on external. It isn't an issue because of the structure. Appointing members may well reduce in appointing people who are similar people and result in groupthink. Please reject the proposal. It reduces accountability and introduces complexity.
Thank you for that, Sam. Question 2. Will these proposed changes improve the extent to which the Students' Association is a student-led organisation? 2 minutes each. Against first, please.
Okay, so sadly, the Students' Association is not really a student-led organisation. As was said earlier, it is led by the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees are responsible for the strategy, governance, finance and staffing of the university, of the Students' Association. They are responsible for the appointment of student reps on OU governance committees, and in future they will be responsible for the scrutiny panel that is there to hold the student leadership team to account, and they report back to they are accountable to the Board of Trustees. It is not clear in any way that any of these policies actually improve the prospect of a student-led organisation. I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you very much, Nigel. Okay, so the For campaign.
A student-led organisation exists to represent students as a university. Students dedicate time and resources to give the wider student community an inclusive and supportive experience, offering opportunities to get involved, providing a representative structure for their student voice. The student leadership team also leads on administration of the Students' Association, community, education and academic matters, engagement, equality, diversity and inclusion, and student support issues. This is definitely led by students. Having the large student forum feeding into the leadership team would mean that the diversity seen in OU students was reflected and wider perspectives would be included in decision making or information gathering. It would also enable students to get more involved during their term by supporting the work of their student leaders.
It is part of our strategy to engage with students more and involve them more in association work. And this is the perfect way to do this, helping make change within the university and ensuring our voice counts. Having a designated space for views to be shared will lead to more fairness and transparency of opinions by providing another route to share perspectives. The fact that there will be larger mixture appointed and elected students working together would be an enabler for our student-led organization. The more students involved in representing the wider student community help drive the organization forward, making and create a more effective student-led organization.
Thank you, Stephanie and Shazam. I hope I'm close to the pronunciation on that. Question number 3. How will your campaign's preferred approach improve diversity and representation within the Students' Association? 2 minutes again for campaign to go first.
This new structure, just check I'm not muted. This new structure gives more students the opportunity to get involved without going through a public election process, creating a diverse team of students who can impact real change within the university. Many students regularly tell us that the idea of standing for an election causes them anxiety, but they would feel more comfortable putting themselves forward more privately to appointed roles, similar to Senate reference group and similar to our Central Committee representative appointed roles. It is important to us to maintain democracy and ensure that our student leaders are representative of students. We can achieve this by appointing roles as well as electing them. However, we need to remove barriers to inclusion so we do not lose some of the rich diversity of our community.
The larger number of elected and appointed representatives in the student forum should ensure a more diverse and representative body. And the decisions made have considered a wider range of experience, perspectives, and views. This is a perfect place to get some experience and knowledge for those who feel they need it. As the team refreshes and changes due to term limits, it will give more students the confidence to step forward. With more diversity in each role, it means more democracy, fresh ideas, and a large pool of talent to draw on for delivery.
Again, thank you, Stephanie and Shazam. The Against campaign?
Hi, yes. I'm not quite sure where we were given the opportunity to provide our approach to improving diversity and representation within the association. There are problems. I'm not sure that we're entirely represented across the board. Would it therefore not be better to look at ways, as for example, the consultant on the association's governance review mentioned that there were problems with our election processes? Should we not look at those before we rip up what structures we already have? Should we not look at how we can improve diversity before going for a system that actually could potentially reduce it? So, for example, by removing the number of places that are directly electable, does that provide greater opportunity for people from diverse backgrounds to become involved? It's not clear to me that it does. I'd like to see how.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Nobody else speaking on this? No. Okay, so that takes us to question 4. How does reducing the number of directly elected roles improve representation of the student body? Again, 2 minutes. And the Against campaign is first.
Okay, against, it doesn't. If you have a larger number of people that can be directly elected to an organisation, then you have a greater opportunity for people from diverse roles to be Sorry, this is...
So it's resolution C. Yeah.
Yeah, resolution C. No, it doesn't, basically. It doesn't. If you reduce the number of roles to which people can be elected, then you reduce the opportunity for a diverse number of opinions to be represented. If you've got lots of places, then lots of people from different backgrounds can become involved. If you have fewer places, then you have fewer number of people that can be involved. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Nigel. And the For campaign.
Currently, student leadership team places are elected, which limits those who can put themselves forwards, as not everyone wants to go through an election. In fact, our research suggests students would appreciate other ways to be involved, and they could still represent the student voice within the Student Association in an appointed role. For example, if you've got roles that are appointed and you've got the elected roles filled, the appointed roles could be allocated to the diversity gaps that we've got within our representation. The elections for the student leadership team may fill most roles, but we have a significant dropout, especially in faculty association representatives and area association representative roles. This leaves vacant student leadership spaces with by-elections and appointments, as was said earlier, repeated to try to cover these places, leaving some student leadership team members overloaded with work. Having the opportunity to have appointed students would allow us to appoint at any time.
During official student leadership team meetings, there is not enough time for everyone to speak on all the provided papers, nor a chance for full discussion of more complex subjects. Due to the number of people around the table who would like to speak, papers are redirected to forums, and conversations are cut short, leaving some matters unresolved. Reducing the number of the student leaders would make meetings more manageable and discussion richer and effective. Their work would be supported by a diverse and representative spread of the student volunteer, both appointed and elected within the student forum, which would remove a barrier to representation, for example, election.
I'm going to gloss over my inability to pronounce your name by saying thank you both. So, resolution D. We're on the home run now. Implement the recommendation of a new scrutiny panel to hold the student leadership team to account. We only have 2 questions. First one, you have 3 minutes to explain why conference delegates should vote for or against this resolution. 3 minutes. Against campaign to go first, please.
Thank you. Students should vote against this resolution since it provides scrutiny for the leadership team. But as we heard, the people with the authority in the association now are the Board of Trustees. They are the body responsible for running the association. And as far as I can see in the proposals, there is no scrutiny at all of that board. We have heard how important the board's role is and all the things that they're responsible for. There should definitely be a mechanism for accountability to the members of the association. This proposal adds yet further complexity by having yet another committee in the association governance structure. We have problems already with communication, as has been indicated with the review, between members of the board and the Central Executive Committee and the other volunteer organised groups of the Senate Reference Group and the Central Committee representatives. Adding yet another panel, committee or anything else adds to the complexity of that structure, and it also adds to the requirements for resources to staff and support it. It is proposed in this proposal to have 2 student members from the Student Forum, but yet again we see that the proposal to have appointed students, in this case 3 appointed students. So without trying to be totally repetitive, it is the same question about how they are appointed and by whom. There is this very clear danger of appointments being made by the same people to appoint people like them. This is well researched and known as groupthink. To be effective, the people will have to have some prior knowledge of the association, and this again sets up a possibility of what I'll call a revolving door of people moving from the leadership, the Board of Studies, and taking up a new role on the trustees. This does not give diversity. An annual effectiveness review should be a requirement for the SLT. It should be approved by students and approved. And finally, the SLT should be accountable to the students who elected them. And questions and discussion in that aspect is absolutely vital for it to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And the For campaign, please.
Thank you, Jackie. The Students' Association is run by students for students, but how do we make sure that the students running it are acting and behaving in the best way to represent and fulfill the needs of our student body? Accountability is important to ensure that our student leadership team takes responsibility for the commitment and promises they make to the wider student community. Being an accountable leader is no easy task, but we believe it's important to encourage our elected representatives to lead by example and take responsibility for the outcomes of their actions, decisions, and behaviours. Currently, we have no scrutiny process to ensure that the student leadership team is working within the association's values, vision, and mission, or that they are fulfilling their remits and manifesto promises. The closest to this are the quarterly reports and the conference reports at the end of their 2-year term that the Central Executive Committee produces. Most students do not read these or know how these are relevant to them.
The proposed scrutiny panel, which would consist of 6 to 8 members drawn from the Student Forum, the wider student body and the university, would report to the Board of Trustees and the wider student community as a system of accountability. This would be a 2-way process where the student leader could get feedback on how they're doing and address issues or problems that need to be resolved. The Board of Trustees can also recognise the work of the elected representatives do, while offering additional direction, intervention and support. We ask that you support this resolution to ensure that our student leadership team does what they promise and act in the interests of the wider student community, while strengthening the openness and transparency of the Open University Students' Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanny and Kate. And the ultimate question this evening is, what is the alternative to a scrutiny panel? With only 2 minutes. And the For campaign to go first, please.
Thanks, Jackie. So the recommendation of holding the student leadership team accountable is vital to ensure that our student leaders work effectively and appropriately. One alternative to the scrutiny panel would be to bring in auditors as outside consultants, but there would be costs involved in this. This is really the only other way of doing it. You either have internal scrutiny or external scrutiny. Of course, the other alternative is that we continue with the status quo that we currently have and not hold our student leadership team actions and behaviours accountable. This would prevent an opportunity to recognise issues or problems early so that intervention, help and support could be offered. Elected student representatives would be able to act and behave as they wish if their report at the end of term and each quarter was present and fit for purpose. There would be no way of making sure that the Students' Association values and visions were adhered to or followed. The scrutiny panel would be a more cost-effective than the auditor's alternative, providing a proactive and consultative approach to accountability. Therefore, we ask students to vote for this resolution to approve a scrutiny panel to be established.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Thank you, Fanny. And the against campaign, please.
What is the alternative to a scrutiny panel? Well, I have 3 suggestions, and there could be more if I had more than 2 minutes. Annual effectiveness reviews, for example, are commonly used throughout the OU to scrutinise the performance of decision-making bodies. We would suggest that the association adopts a similar process for the student leadership team and for the Board of Trustees, measuring individual and team performance against an agreed set of parameters. There's also a strong case for inviting an OU delegate to serve not on a scrutiny panel, but on the Board of Trustees, an arrangement that's common in very many student unions. Our association president and an elected student council member serve on the university's governing body, and a reciprocal arrangement whereby a university delegate would serve as an association trustee would bring new strength and expertise to the board. If it's felt that further scrutiny is necessary, we would suggest quite radically a scrutiny panel formed of 5 students elected at conference who would report back to the next conference, which should include a report on the performance of the student leadership team and the trustees. And in the interest of transparency, we would suggest that every conference should include a live Q&A session with the association president and the chair of the trustees.
Thank you, Barbara. And that brings us to the close of the debate. And all I can say is how disappointed I have been in you all this evening. If every meeting was like this, well, no one would have heard of Jackie Weaver, would they? So thank you very much for conducting such a comfortable debate and putting forward your points so clearly and helping me back on track when I needed to be brought back on track. So I wish you every success with your conclusion, whatever conclusion looks like, and perhaps look forward to hearing what the results are. So thank you all again for participating this evening and also for making it a genuinely pleasant experience.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks,
you.
Jackie.
Thanks, everyone.